Have you ever felt free, and yet deep down, completely trapped? Not by walls, not by handcuffs, but by something far more subtle and far more dangerous. You wake up, go to work, pay your bills, scroll your phone, nod at the news, follow trends, smile when expected, and say you're doing fine, even when your soul whispers otherwise. You are not being forced. No one holds a whip over your back. And yet, there's this suffocating weight in your chest, like you're living someone else's life. They told you that freedom was real, that you could be whoever you wanted to be. But they didn't tell you what the price of fitting in would be. They didn't tell you that freedom in this world is often a beautifully packaged lie. You see, modern society has mastered the art of invisible chains. You are not beaten into obedience. You are seduced into it, with comfort, with distraction, with fear disguised as morality. And somewhere along the way, you traded your fire for approval. You stopped being dangerous. You became civilized. But what if freedom, real freedom, demands something violent, something painful, something that breaks the version of you they carefully taught you to become? What if real freedom requires unlearning everything? Let's name it. This pain you feel but can't quite explain. It's the agony of living under a system that calls itself liberation, but operates as a cage. You feel it every time you silence your truth for the sake of peace. Every time you betray your intuition to follow the rules. Every time you lower your voice in order to stay in the tribe. This is not freedom. This is psychological slavery. And you're not alone. You're part of a generation raised to mistake conformity for success, busyness for purpose, likes for love, and obedience for virtue. They programmed you to fear your own mind, to fear silence, to fear standing alone. Because if you stood alone, truly alone, you might begin to see. And once you see, you can't unsee. Nietzsche called it the herd instinct, the human tendency to obey the values of the majority, not because they are right, but because they are safe, familiar, acceptable. He saw it as the greatest enemy of true individualism, and he warned us. The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. The system doesn't need to punish you to control you. All it needs is to make you fear rejection more than you value truth. So you shrink, you blend in, you stop asking questions, you let others define what a good person is. You choose the path that seems right, because everyone else is walking it. You call that path freedom. But is it? Or is it a comfortable cage? Nietzsche believed most people are not living their own lives, but rather the lives others have pre-written for them. He called these people the last men, beings who have given up striving for greatness, for danger, for transformation, beings who only want comfort, security, and shallow happiness. Sound familiar? You were not born to be one of the last men. You were born to be a flame. But the world teaches you to be water, harmless, adaptable, contained. And you call this adulthood, maturity, responsibility. But look closer. Much of what we call maturity is just the ability to endure self-betrayal without making a sound. They sold you a dream of freedom. But what they handed you was a leash, because the freest slaves are the ones who believe they're not enslaved at all. But here's the twist. Nietzsche did not believe that freedom was impossible. He believed it was the hardest thing, the most dangerous thing, the most lonely thing. To become free is to walk away from the herd, not in rebellion, but in transformation, He who cannot obey himself will be commanded. And that's where your true journey begins. Not when you defy others, but when you finally hear your own voice clearly enough to obey yourself. Not your conditioned mind, not your ego, not your fear, but the self buried beneath all of it. You've felt it, haven't you? In the quiet moments, that whisper, that strange raw knowing that this isn't who you really are, that you've adapted too well to survive, and in doing so, forgotten how to live. But you are not lost. You are simply buried. And in the next part, we will begin to dig. You weren't meant to live like this, half awake, half alive, nodding through a life that feels scripted. There's a reason you feel empty after doing everything right. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you were never meant to be domesticated. Modern society teaches you to polish your edges until you shine, until you're smooth, appealing, marketable. But in that smoothing, something vital gets erased. Your wildness, your rage, your sacred refusal. They want your obedience, but they'll settle for your numbness. Because a numb citizen doesn't ask dangerous questions. A numb citizen follows rules. A numb citizen stays on the treadmill, eyes forward, hands folded, playing the game, never realizing the game was rigged from the start. And if you ever question it, if you ever pause, look around, and ask, why does this feel like prison? They'll say you're ungrateful. They'll say, you have freedom. Look around. You can choose your job. You can choose your partner. You can vote. You can speak. But can you speak truthfully without fear? Can you choose your path, or only from the limited options they've deemed acceptable? Can you think without someone telling you what's right to think? That's not freedom. That's curated autonomy. Nietzsche saw through all of it. He didn't just attack religion. He attacked all forms of blind obedience. He wasn't a nihilist. He was a radical liberator. But not the kind that would hand you freedom. The kind that would force you to earn it by shattering your illusions. He wrote of the Übermensch, the one who rises above the herd, the one who creates his own values, the one who walks through the death of all external meaning and still chooses to live. Not survive, live. But before you can rise, you must fall. Fall out of the social spell, fall out of your borrowed beliefs, fall into the terrifying silence of your own mind. Because only there, in that solitude, does truth begin to speak. Society fears that moment. That's why it keeps you busy, distracted, entertained. It fears you remembering who you are. And here's the truth that most won't tell you. Freedom begins in loss. You have to lose your borrowed identity. You have to lose your attachment to being liked. You have to lose the need to be understood. This is not a poetic transformation. It's violent, it's destabilizing, it hurts. You'll feel like you're dying. Because something is dying, the false self. Nietzsche understood this death as a rite of passage. He described 3 transformations of the spirit: the camel, the lion, and the child. First, you become the camel. You carry the weight of the world's shoulds. You obey, you kneel. Then you become the lion. You reject, you roar. You say no to everything that once chained you. But it doesn't end there. Finally, you become the child, innocent again, but not naive. The child who says yes, the child who creates, the child who invents their own values, not out of rebellion, but out of rebirth. Where are you in this process? Are you still the camel, breaking under invisible burdens? Are you the lion, tearing through illusions with blood on your teeth? Or are you becoming the child, wild and luminous, standing on the ashes of who you once were. This is the paradox of true freedom. It cannot be given to you. It can only be claimed, and you claim it not by fighting the world, but by reclaiming yourself from it. You see, society can only enslave you with the parts of you that still seek approval, that still long to belong, that still believe the story that you must earn your right to exist. But once you no longer need validation, once you are willing to walk alone, you become untouchable, untamable, free. This doesn't mean abandoning people. It means no longer abandoning yourself to keep people comfortable. Because the most revolutionary act in a conformist world is to be unapologetically, radically yourself. Even if it makes you an outsider, especially if it does, there's power in exile, there's clarity in solitude, and there's a strange kind of peace in finally saying, I would rather be real and rejected than fake and loved. Most people will never get there. They'll spend their lives decorating their cages, calling it home. But you are starting to see the bars, and once you see them, you can't go back. In the next part, we will explore what it truly means to become dangerous. Not in the violent sense, but in the Nietzschean sense. A person who cannot be manipulated because they have nothing to lose that wasn't truly theirs. Breathe for a moment and feel the echo of that final question reverberate in your ribs. Let it settle, like embers awaiting the slightest gust to ignite into a blaze. You do not need anyone's permission to kindle that fire. Only your own intolerable honesty. The willingness to admit that the life you have endured is smaller than the life that is calling you. Tonight, when the world quiets, close the glowing screens, dim the lights, and listen. In the hush you will hear two voices. One belongs to the herd, soft and persuasive, promising comfort if you stay exactly where you are. The other is rougher, unfamiliar, almost wild, the subterranean pulse of your unedited self. Follow the second. Even if it guides you into darkness, trust that your eyes will adjust. They always do. Tomorrow practice one act of sovereign defiance. Speak the truth you have been swallowing for years. Say no where you have reflexively said yes. Walk an unfamiliar street without headphones, and notice how the city rearranges itself around your alertness. These are not small gestures. They are muscle fibers of freedom repairing themselves after a lifetime of atrophy. Remember, the chains you can see are never the ones that hold you. The real shackles are forged in thought, in habit, in the stories you repeat about who you are and what is possible. Melt them with the simple, relentless heat of present-moment awareness. Each conscious breath widens the gap in the cell door. You are not powerless. You are not late. Freedom is not a finish line. It is a practice, chosen again and again until choosing becomes your nature. From this day on, don't live like someone waiting for permission. Live like someone who's already been set free.